basically, I feel like sales have just, been evolving just like everything else in our space. I recently did a live on, so much evolving around social media. I want to do more around that because I have a lot more thoughts on that. But I think we're just in a period of change, as we always are in a sense too, right? Like I feel like last year felt like so much, like change coming toward us. I think, we're feeling the same right now, but being willing to adapt to that, learn from that, all the things is so valuable in business and is absolutely the thing that's going to make the biggest difference. And so we will talk about how to do that, how to adapt, what you can kind of consider, how this can apply to your business, all the things. So if you have questions, obviously let me know. If you are watching the replay, let me know that too. Always appreciate you being here and saying hi. All right, so the first thing that we're going to talk about, that I think I've actually already done a bit of a live on, but I want to talk about it again because it is so important. And I think is so getting so missed right now for so many people in business is problem identification or problem awareness, whatever you want to call that. Because the online space is so much busier and noisier, and because there are so many ways now to solve the same problem, you almost have to assume at this point that your audience does not have problem awareness like they used to, right? So even like when I first started my business and I was really focused on content, it was just different then because most people just knew they needed content. Like there wasn't like 500,000 other conversations happening in the online space. So I worked a lot more around giving like valuable content around content, um, without having to work as hard on problem awareness because most people already had an awareness that they needed a thing because they were hearing, it a few places and there wasn't so much noise. That I think has changed drastically. And there is so much noise that our audience has really let go of that same level of problem awareness. And the problem feels like it changes every day based on like what they're watching, what they're consuming, what they're seeing, all of those kind of things. And so it can be really, really hard for them to lock in on, I need this program, this thing now, unless you're really creating a lot of upfront content, helping them become problem aware. Or they're just missing you and not even paying attention to your content because they don't think they have the problem you solve, even if they would be the perfect client for you, right? So, for example, like, let's say, I don't know, if you're on here and you want to give me an example, I would greatly appreciate that because I always do better with specifics, but I can make one up. But if you want me to use your business, feel free to tell me what problem you solve and we can talk about that. Happy to walk through any specifics there. But, even for like what I solve, I have to do a lot more work to help people see that the framework I teach, mindset, strategy, and execution, is the problem they have, right? So it really is one of those things where like you have to become problem aware that mindset, strategy, and execution is the thing, or you're not paying enough attention, or you're not like, I have to hire you, right? Or, in value-centered sales, the mastermind I do, they have to have a lot of problem awareness that sales is their issue. They have to not think it's growing on Instagram or getting a bigger audience or like, what else do people think it is? Just having a different program, having a better offer, all of those things. Like they have to be super problem aware that making sales in a way that feels good to them is their biggest problem, right? And so if I pitch so much around like make sales feel good to you, make sales feel good to you, and I don't say, here's how you would know like you need more help with sales, here's what that looks like, here's why you don't need a bigger audience, here's why that's not the problem, right? They're just going to miss me if they think that the problem is they just need more people in their audience. Does that make sense? Speranza says the problem I solve is that entrepreneurs achieve goals, but they get to the end and are unhappy. They achieve goals, but they get to the end and are unhappy. So I would try to say like what needs to be their awareness there. Like, are they already someone that's unhappy and they need to be aware that the unhappiness is the biggest issue and not hitting more goals? Like, what would you say the awareness they would have to have before they come to you is? That's what I would try to think about. Kristen said, I struggle with using problem communication for what I do. Done for UPR traditional media. My ideal clients usually know they want to be featured in the media. Kristen, I think like what they might not know is why the media is the best thing for them to be featured in to get like more of what they want, like whatever that is, like bigger audience, more following, more sales. Like, does that make sense? Like there's so many things competing with their attention around that. So like you're also competing with like the person that says they'll grow your TikTok or the social media strategist or potentially. And so having really great conversation to create problem awareness around why going to done for you PR using traditional media is the thing to grow, and how they would know that and where they would be at business and what that would look like for them to know that this is the time for them to do media above other things is so important. Because if you think about it, just think about like your experience of, you know, coming into a group or coming online, like you see someone talking about PR and you're like, oh, PR seems awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah, maybe I should do that. And then you see someone else being like, hey, I can help you like blow up on Pinterest and that's better for you than anything else because it's going to get you this many leads. Like our brain's like, oh, okay, well, maybe Pinterest is my problem because I haven't even really tried Pinterest yet. So that's actually a good point. Then I come over here and I say, like, and you see how it's so easy to ping pong all day long, right? And that's what makes sales really hard versus like if I have been fully sold on the fact that I need to do PR, then it's easier for me to get sold on hiring you. But we have to like sell them on the problem we solve before we can even sell them on our work, basically like us, our package, our offer. Because if not, we just miss each other. If I know I need to grow my audience, but I don't yet see PR as the opportunity to do that, I could still be a very ideal client. I just haven't been educated on why PR is the best. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So really creating that is so important, because if not, we're doing this all day long. Like I think shiny object syndrome is much greater than it has ever been, which is okay if you're really in that place to create problem awareness for your audience super, super consistently. That also is what makes your sales calls easier, by the way, because they're getting on knowing they already need PR, right? I'm just using PR, Kristen, because you gave it to me. But they're getting on like knowing they already have PR or already need PR. So the conversion is so different and so much easier, where if they're just getting on to decide if they want PR or something else or whatever, now you're doing like problem awareness work on a sales call as opposed to them already being invested by the time they get on. Tiani says, thanks, Lacey. I was thinking about this today. Do people actually know they have the problem and what the underlying real problem is? Yes, exactly. And so, Tiani, feel free to give me like the example of who you serve and we can talk through that. But I think you bring up another point, which is like what the underlying real problem is. So that's another thing too. Like sometimes if we're doing something like, I'm just gonna use another example again, but feel free to give it to me, like mindset coaching or something. Like I might have a ton of things that someone thinks is the problem before they actually realize the underlying problem is mindset. And so most of my content is going to need to be focused on problem awareness and education, because if not, they're never going to pay attention to my content because they think their problem is something totally different, right? It's even just like one of my clients we were talking about weight loss stuff. And it's like, I have to see my problem around losing weight is around this specific thing you help me with, because if not, there are 5,000 things coming at me all the time that'll tell me this is the actual problem. This is the problem. And so I have to get really invested in the idea that the problem I have is whatever, like balancing my gut health, right? And then I'm going to hire you for that. But no matter what, I'm never going to take that step to have that like urgent need to buy from you unless I fully see that as the problem. Does that make sense? Um, and so, yeah, if there is this like real underlying problem that's different than what they think, then like so much content is going to have to educate them on that specifically. Cool. Okay, so next up is number 2, which goes into this one, which is ensuring someone's a yes before you make the objection mean too much, right? Kristen says, yes, it makes sense. I do talk about it a bit. I work with people who are changing the world for a better place to set the agenda and create real change and a movement. The news media is where it's at. Right. So like you would just really want to be clear. Like if your goal is, setting the agenda, creating real change, making a movement, there's nothing better than PR. Here's why, here's what that looks like. Here's why this is the number one problem you have if that's what you're going after. Right. So it's so important for them to see that as being better to solve that problem, get that outcome than anything else out there. Right. Okay. So the next one around ensuring they're a yes before we go too far down the objection route is similar. I feel like what is happening because of the lack of problem awareness, people will be more likely to get on a sales call to kind of like explore, is this the thing? Is this not the thing? Which is different than someone getting on a call being like, I know you solve the problem I have, and I pretty much know I'm already like a yes to that, which is different than like, I have this problem and you're talking about this outcome, but I'm not sure if the right way to solve the problem is your program, right? And so if I don't know that the right way to solve the problem is your program, of course I'm going to have objections. I'm going to have a lot of them. And I'm probably going to even have ones that aren't accurate because I'm like just saying that thing because I don't see the value, right? So for example, like say I get on, Kristen, I'm gonna use you as an example again, but like say I get on the phone with a PR person, and I'm not quite sure yet if that's really the thing. And so I'm like talking to them, but I'm also thinking about doing this like Instagram course about, like blowing up there. And then I'm also thinking about like, maybe I should just like give my social media manager more hours, really still trying to figure all that out. And then also I'm going to talk to a Facebook ads person because that seems like a good opportunity too. So when I get on the call, then I'm, hearing about your program, et cetera, et cetera. And then it's easy for me to be like, well, money is the problem, right? And what I really mean is money is the problem because I'm exploring 5 other things, right? And I don't see this as being the one thing. And so even if you talk through the money objections, even if you do all the things there, the problem was I was never invested enough that it felt like this has to be the place to spend my money because I'm still thinking about all these other things. So that is so important because there are just so many programs and problem solves kind of than ever before. We have to be addressing this in a new way. But what could happen is if I say that to you, I'm like, oh, money's the problem. Then you get confused in your business because now you get off this call thinking I'm not buying because of money, when really I'm not buying because I have 5 other options I'm exploring and I haven't even yet decided that this is the thing for me. And so then you could go down this whole rabbit hole of changing pricing and offers and whatever because you think it's about the money. Does that make sense to everybody? I know that seems kind of like complicated, but it's more like if we haven't yet fully gotten someone to the point where they're like, I know this is the problem. I know you help me solve it. I know this is the program for me and I want it now. Then the objections conversation is almost irrelevant because I don't know that this is for me, right? Objections are relevant when it's like, I know this is it. I know this is the thing and I know I want it now, but something's keeping me stuck. So basically what both of these points are showing is we have to do so much more work with our audience to get them to the problem awareness and the yes point, where before, we would just be able to talk about objections way, way, way more, right? Because there was almost an assumption of like, of course you want this thing and get what the problem is. But right now, with there being so many things everywhere, right? We have to make sure, like, is this a thing for you? Have you decided that fully? Then, of course, we can talk through the objections on the other side. I'm also a big fan of putting out content to address objections. 100%. I think that is so valuable in your business. But if you're only putting out content to address objections and not problem awareness content, it almost like you're almost missing the point in a sense, because the objection doesn't matter unless I know that thing is the thing I have to have and want, right? So you see how these are tied together so strongly, where it's like, I have to create problem awareness. I have to be a full yes. And then overcoming the objections about doing it is super, super relevant, right? Speranza says, what does problem awareness content look like? So it would really look like almost like exactly what we were just talking about with Kristen, where it's like, hey, if you want this in your business, let me show you how this other stuff isn't the right solution, or let me show you how this is actually the problem you have. Like, it's that you're not in the media more, because if you were in the media more, this would be happening. And if you were in the media more, this would be happening. And you not being in the media is stopping this from happening. So you're really walking them through what it looks like to see, oh, not having like PR and being in the media is the problem in my business. So even like my entire quiz that I have, my missing piece quiz, is problem awareness content for my business, right? So in the missing piece quiz, everyone answers, I think there's 10 questions. And then based on those answers, we help them see like, hey, your biggest missing piece is X. So this is the problem you need to solve right now. And here's how to start solving it, right? And so that's so helpful, because what you're really doing is being like, let me walk you through all these questions so you can see what the problem really is. And then as they're answering the questions, of course, they're going, oh yeah, that makes sense. Oh yeah, that is the problem. And then they get the answer at the end and it's like, oh yeah, that is the problem. So it doesn't have to just be a quiz. That's just an example. But my point is, it's basically walking people through to see, like, if you're at this place, this is your problem. And so they feel like you're really talking to them from where they're at, right? Because if not, again, it's going to be too easy to be like, well, I think Instagram could be a problem. I think this could be a problem. I think, the algorithm, I think my funnel, I think this. But if I have someone help me through figuring that out through great content, through questions, through case studies, storytelling, any of that, and I can see myself in that and be like, oh, that makes sense. That is the problem. That's when like that buying, that urgency is so simple, right? It's sort of like, one way I describe it to clients sometimes is like problem diagnosis. Like if I go into my doctor and they're like, oh, well, the problem you have is you need your gallbladder taken out because you're experiencing this and this and this. And then our scan tells us this, and we can see this here. The diagnosis is you need your, or is whatever it's called. I don't know what it's called when you need your gallbladder taken out. I've had it. So that's my example. Like, of course I'm doing that thing because now I've gone through all this problem awareness. Then I get a diagnosis. Then of course I'm doing the thing. So does that make sense? Which basically just brings us back to, it wouldn't make sense for them to, say to me like, hey, you have all these problems and we know your objection to solving it might be time or money or whatever. I'm like, that's not even a problem. Like, tell me what is really wrong. Oh, it's that I need surgery on my gallbladder and that will fix everything. Okay, I'm in. I'm figuring that out. But does that make sense? Why sometimes if we address objections too early before someone's even bought in, then we're left in our business thinking that people have all these random objections that aren't even necessarily relevant. Like, we first want to find out, do they want this thing? Do they get that this thing is the thing that will help them? Amazing. Then objections are relevant. Or are they just exploring this thing plus 10 other things. And then the objection, no matter what, isn't anything. It's that they haven't decided this is what they want or what solves their problem. Okay, cool. Brittany says, what do you do if your client hired you to solve a problem and then they get triggered by your feedback and blatantly resist? Off topic. You gave them problem awareness, they hired you, and now they hate all the ways to solve it. I mean, listen, I think honestly that's pretty normal in a sense. I feel like so often like we're hiring someone because we need help with a specific thing. And then usually the reason we need help with that specific thing is because it's like harder for us or more triggering for us or whatever. So anyway, Brittany, just normalizing that a little bit, that makes sense. Someone hires me because they don't want to feel icky at sales, but then when I'm asking for things like follow-up or whatever, of course that could be triggering because they're really, really, really scared of feeling icky and sleazy at sales. So anyway, I think there's some normalization there and probably why they hired you to solve that problem. But I think you can also just ask them that. Like, hey, I know you hired me to help solve X problem. Feels like you're really resistant to XXX thing. Can you help me understand like why that's such a resistance point and what's coming up there and how I can better help you there? But kind of not being afraid to like call that out or dive into it, I think is really helpful. They obviously can feel that they're probably doing it. You can feel that they're doing it. So just being willing to like open that conversation of like, what is that resistance when this is what you hired me to help with? Like, let me know. I think it's really kind of what coaching is so good for, honestly. Like, I think it's beautiful that you're hitting up against that resistance so that they can work through it and like actually solve the problem, where it's almost too easy to think like, oh, someone just comes to me and I tell them what to do and they do it. Like someone comes to me because they're struggling to do a thing because they have a bunch of shit around that thing. And then I tell them what to do. And then they have a bunch of stuff come up and then we work through it and then they do it. It's kind of more of what I think coaching generally looks like. So anyway, totally not that you're doing something wrong necessarily. I think normal, but probably just like diving in, calling it out is what I would say there. Okay, so then the last piece, so first piece was problem identification. Second piece was like assuring their yes before objections, and then not like making those objections mean to change things in your business, but really making sure your business and your sales process is getting people to a full yes first, right? Full yes. So if you feel like you're never getting someone to a full yes, don't worry so much about all the objection pieces yet. Like worry more about like problem awareness and how do we get them to that like, oh, I need this. And when I say full yes, I don't mean like, they're signing up tomorrow. I mean full yes, like I fully see that this is my problem. I fully see that this program, this thing is for me, fully see that this is what I need right now kind of thing, right? Like yes to you, yes to the program, yes to now. And then, but I'm scared about timing, but I'm scared about money, but I'm freaked out about, if I'm, going to be good at it, if I trust myself enough, blah, blah, all that's fine. But make sure your sales process is getting people to, oh, I totally see that I have that problem. I totally think this is for me. And I'm totally ready to solve it here. Because when you work them all the way through that, that's when it gets super good to start overcoming objections. But if you try to do that too much earlier, you're going to get really confused in your business and in your market research and seeing it as market research almost. And you're going to be tempted to make a lot of changes in your business when really it was a different problem. And I think that's huge right now. Tiani says, I have the same problem. Client hired me in resistance to the work. Totally. Again, I think, it's so good to see that normalization, right? Where it's like, a lot of us do that. I think, it's like hiring a fitness coach to help you work out more when you haven't worked out in a year because you don't like working out or whatever. Of course, there's going to be resistance there. Being able to work through that is huge. But yeah, it's so normal. It happens to us all. Y'all are both having that. I've totally had that. I think it's kind of part of the coaching game, so to speak. All right. So the last thing I want to talk about that I think has definitely evolved in sales and is really important here is working someone through and understanding that you might have a longer buyer cycle. So what I mean by that is what I'm seeing, I think this has always been true, but I think it's just more true now, again, as our space has gotten kind of bigger, noisier, all of that kind of stuff, is buyer cycles take time. Like people have to warm up to you and really have to get to know you in a much deeper way, typically to buy now. I think especially if they've like bought something in the past online and have been burned, etc. Like most people I think now are taking longer to make buying decisions, where I feel like it used to be a little bit faster. And this is like broad generalization, obviously, but I think that it is more and more true. And I've definitely talked to a lot of people that see this and feel this in their business as well. Again, I think it was always true where like someone you talk to now could come back later, or someone you have a sales call with now comes back around months from now. I have certainly always taught that and always found that to be true. But I think it's even more true now, i.e. like I'm seeing with clients where it's like someone that was interested in this launch bought next launch, someone that seemed really warm off of like this call or this funnel is buying next launch, next round, next, well, not next call because you wouldn't necessarily have to do a next call, but like next offer, next thing. And, you know, not always it looking exactly like they come to one event, they get sales emails, they convert off that event, done. I think it's looking like they might come to multiple events of yours before they can convert, or it's not like they get 3 sales emails, then they buy. I think it's looking like they get 3 sales emails and follow you on social for a while, and your next launch, they come around. So it's really being okay with the fact that like, it's not so much the old mentality of like, just, you know, like go quiet, pop up, do a big event, launch, get them to buy right then go quiet. Then, you know, take a long time, pop up, let you guys know I've been preaching this for a while, like launches are made between launches, all of that kind of stuff. But this is why, because the cycle is stretching out in a lot of cases. And so if you're trying to do that thing of like, get as many people in, convert as fast as possible, I think it's just getting harder to play that game. And so going into your marketing and launches through that lens of like, how can I warm people up over a period of time? How can I not see my leads as like being done after that launch? How can I not see my call as being a no if they didn't convert off that one call? It's like seeing all of that as like, oh, that gives me an even bigger launch next time. Oh, that gives me even more warm leads for the next offer. Oh, that gives me even more people in my pipeline, right? Tiani just said pipeline, right? Pipeline, baby, in my pipeline to pull from. And so I think where we can kind of get frustrated sometimes is we like do the one thing and then we're like, it didn't convert as well. Instead, it's like, do multiple things and the same people coming is what will convert. But are we okay with that buyer cycle being a little bit longer, or, you know, stretching over multiple launches even? And while I think that that can feel frustrating, I also think it can feel really good too, because you're building up people over time, as opposed to like, you have to nail this one event and the pressure that can come from that. Like this, everything hinges on this one thing to make you sales. I just don't think it looks that like that anymore in the same way. I think it hinges more on that relationship they build with you over time, again, because it is noisy, because it is like busier and there are more problems and there are more things. Like people are just a little more distracted, number one, but also more weary to buy right off the bat. So I think it's just really, really beautiful to see, like, I don't have to make that a bad thing if I'm willing to nurture people and not let that piss me off too much, right? Because I think that's where we can tend to give people like almost like bad vibes in our head, where we're like, oh, that's just a freebie seeker. Oh, that's just someone who wants all my free content and is never going to buy. And I don't think that's what that is at all. I think it's like, that's someone that's like very much in the buyer cycle. How can I keep nurturing that and be like elated if they come to a few events or consume a ton of my content, because that is what's going to get them to buy. But like that old mentality of like, if they're consuming a bunch of my free shit and not buying, they're never going to buy, I think it's just doesn't make sense anymore. Hey, Claire, she said, I think this is so important. Not enough people are talking about this. It's all about relationships. Exactly. 100%. Really is. And like longer term relationships. So not like the 2 weeks that you're launching relationship, but the like many, many weeks before, many weeks after. It's all of that now, right? Hi, Raquel. Raquel says, I have definitely been experiencing this for most of my business. I nurture people honestly for a year or more before they buy. It's always been this way. I get groupies and then they pretty much all eventually buy at the right time for them. It's all about nurturing the community. So good. Exactly. And I totally agree. I think that this is like always kind of been a thing, but I think it's even more present now, in that whole like doesn't work to kind of just like pop up, do a thing, launch, get them in. It looks like what's making that work is everything that happened before it. And it's where this problem awareness stuff comes in too, because if they follow you long enough, they're really developing problem awareness. And so then when the time is right, the mentality is super there, and it's so much easier to make the conversion because they trust you. They've been following you for a long time. They totally see that you solve the problem. They're a full yes to you. That's when sales get easy. Like when those three things are true, sales are so fucking easy, right? It's like not even a sale almost. Like it's just like a conversation that has been happening over time where it just feels like, and of course I'm stepping into that. Of course I'm a yes there. Right. But if any one of those things are a kink in the chain, i.e. like they don't have problem awareness, or you're hitting them with all this objection conversation when they haven't even decided that they're a yes to this, or, you know, you're only building the relationship when you're in sales mode and you're not letting the buyer cycle play out, like everything in sales is going to feel tough. And any one of those like kinks in the chain is going to prevent you from getting more clients. And so when you can see all of that is tying together, that's when sales are going to feel like almost effortless, even though of course you're putting in the effort to create that problem awareness content to get them to a full yes, to, you know, have a longer cycle of relationship building in your business, but it will still feel so much easier, right? Hi, Lucy. Awesome. Okay, I have just a little bit more to say on this, but if anybody has questions on this, let me know. Happy to answer them. But I think that why this, oh, Claire says, my lady that converted 18 months later. It's so fun and beautiful as it unfolds. Yeah, and listen, I don't think it always has to be long. Like, let's just say that. I'm not saying like, oh, if you're a new business owner, sucks for you, it's going to take years, right? But if you're a new business owner, doing as much relationship building and nurturing as you can now is what gets you that really like well-oiled machine business down the road. If you are looking at it like, I'm a new business owner and I tried that event and it failed. I'm a new business owner and I tried to, you know, get people to come on lives and they weren't. And so it failed. And so what else is next? Then what is happening is this idea that people should buy fast and right away. It's really, really going to hurt your business long term, because you never get to that point where you're seeing like, oh, the people that, you know, came to that first event are buying on the third. Okay, amazing. Like this is all starting to click. It's like sometimes that idea that like we should have short buyer cycles is like what is making it really, really hard to get through those initial phases of business, right? Because it feels like it's all not working when instead it's almost like, well, this is the first time they've interacted and connected with me in this way potentially. So they might need more of those. And how do we make that a positive thing and see all of it as building toward that instead of a negative thing where it feels like that didn't work. And honestly, the same is true with sales calls. I have so many clients that have people who said no on a call or whatever, and we're back a couple months later when they realized like, oh, that really was my problem. I just couldn't see it at the time, you know? So that goes back to like longer buyer cycle, problem awareness, all of that kind of stuff. And so I feel like this whole idea of like I just talk about the result. I get you. I show up, I do a 2-week event, and then you should buy, and that is gone. Like, I don't have to just talk about the result. I have to help you see how I solve the problem that you have. I don't just show up for a couple of weeks. I might have to do that multiple times in multiple different ways to warm you up enough. Right. And I think that's really like what has evolved and changed. And so I just wanted to talk about this a lot too, because I don't want anyone to have the idea of, thinking that's how it should look. Right. I want you to see like it is taking more. It's true. Like, I feel like nobody wants to say this, and it's certainly not necessarily good for sales, but it is just taking more online right now than it maybe ever has, because it's fuller, it's busier, it's noisier, it's all the things. Like, we know some engagement has been down, et cetera, et cetera. And so to capture that buyer is going to look a little bit different. And just not making that wrong, I think, is what's so helpful. Where if we're trying to play that game of like, no, it should look like they convert super, super fast, and if I just talk about the result, they buy, we're just going to feel frustrated. We're going to feel like our business isn't working. And like, while it is true that maybe it's like harder in different ways, I also think that that doesn't have to be bad either, right? Like, I think that we can just adjust to it and grow with it. Lucy says, do you have a podcast episode on best ways to form relationships in the online space? What do you recommend to learning, getting good at that? Yes, Lucy, I do. Off the top of my head, I don't know what it is. So what I'm going to do is give myself a little sticky note, and I will come back to you. I think I have quite a few live streams on my website on that too. Relationship lives. Got you. I will come back with that. But yes, for sure. Absolutely. Okay. Tiani says, I do feel like people just want quick results and aren't willing to sometimes do the work to see the long-term fruits. Totally. Yeah. 100%. And I think, our industry really sells that in many ways, is the like quick win, fast result kind of thing. And so then it can feel extra frustrating, I think, because you're hearing all this marketing that says like, you should, what I mean? Like, grow this fast or have this many clients overnight or whatever. And you see all of that, and then you make yourself wrong when that's not happening. So I totally agree with you. And I think that's why it's so important to have conversations like this, where we can just like normalize this a little bit more, that like most people do have to really like warm their people up and have, this long buyer cycle and all of this kind of stuff. It's really, really true. Even like with something like Facebook ads, like it's not always looking anymore like I run ads, I add these people to my opt-in event, whatever, they buy, and then I can see the exact return on that investment. It's looking like I add these people to my list. Maybe they buy now, maybe they don't, but then I warm them up for longer and longer, and then they become a buyer at some point too. So it's kind of being willing to see, like, it's not that nobody can convert early, but it is looking more and more like people need time to warm up. And so you have to kind of be in it for the long term, or you're actually leaving a bunch of fucking money on the table. Because like, let's say you paid for all those people for ads and you decided the only thing you got out of that was the people that immediately bought. You're leaving so much fucking money on the table for all those people that you could be nurturing and making sales off of later, right? So I think that's just so important to think about. And I think that for us to just keep having these conversations around, so that we're not fooling ourselves into thinking like, I should have the quickest result as fast as possible with as little effort with my audience as possible, because I just don't think that's what it looks like as much anymore. Facebook says, sorry, we're having trouble playing this video. That's happened to me a few times, but I don't know if that's a real thing or a fake thing. Sometimes it has been real, sometimes it has been fake. Okay, well, hopefully you guys can still hear me. But yes, I completely agree with you, Tiani. And I think that, that will probably continue to play out in our space around the quick results. But I also think that the more we see these shifts coming, the more we see how we're having to show up for our audience in new ways, the more we're going to see like, yeah, it does take some work and effort, but the work is so often still worth the reward. But yeah, it's for sure for sure a thing that people want those fast results. All right, so let me recap really quickly again. Problem identification, ensuring they're a yes fully before we're even diving into other things like objections, and working someone through a longer buying cycle and being willing and available to do that. So I think that is about it, but so important, so much like, permission here, I think, but also so much to really drill down on and look at in your business too. Like, how am I doing these things? Like, am I really putting out problem awareness content right now? Like, am I sure that people are getting to a full yes around my program, around my offering? And am I really letting the buyer cycle play out? Or am I stopping it too early and I'm missing out on so many warm leads, or leaving so much money on the table because I'm thinking that they should convert earlier, that it should look a certain way? So look at that in your own business. How are you creating that pipeline? How are you letting yourself go do the event again? Create that next relationship building opportunity, et cetera, because over time, that really is what's going to grow your business the most. I promise. I see this from behind the scenes all day, every day. I know you guys know this. And it really, really is what makes the biggest difference. So hope that's helpful. I love you guys. I appreciate you. If you're watching the replay and you have any questions, feel free to let me know. And I hope that y'all have a beautiful week. All right. Bye, guys. Oh, actually, just thought of this. Obviously it's August, so no rush on any of this, but since we're talking about sales, I believe that we have one spot left for January for value-centered sales. So if you are interested in that, feel free to email me for value-centered sales mastermind. I think we have one spot left for January. So if you've been on the waitlist and are interested in that, let me know. You can email me, Lacey@alituplife.com. So proud of myself for remembering that. Yay me. All right, guys, have a beautiful week, and I will talk to y'all soon. Bye.